So sit back, guys, relax, make some notes. Any questions, even if you want to use the chat box at the bottom, please feel free to, log any questions or any points in the chat box as well. But I've kind of said enough now, so I'm going to introduce Rhys. You would have all read Rhys's bio that we posted online on advertising this, but just a bit of a reminder. So he's a former Chief of Defence Force, which is a pretty significant role, and it's easy to roll off the tongue, but I'm sure it comes with its challenges and stress and everything else associated with that. And then, of course, moving into the Chief Executive role of New Zealand Fire Emergency. And again, lots of responsibility and a lot of things to take care on and to manage in your head. And then to suddenly face cancer, as he did. He's gone through that himself, and he'll highlight the things that he's discovered, the vital importance of open dialogue and the impact that it can have. He's going to share a little bit about how you can make some life-changing difference, the way that you open up or the way that you share, and how that can affect family, friends, and loved ones. So Rhys, thank you very much for your time. It's so much appreciated. Look forward to it, and I'm handing over to you now.
Okay. Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi, kia koutou koutou manai. Thanks for inviting me back. This is probably my fourth session I've gone on here, so I hope I remain as fresh and as interesting as others have hopefully found me. As said, I want to cover three main themes in my talk, which I'm going to talk through what was my experience and what were the lessons I learned from that. The first one is that we need to be talking more about cancer. It helps you if you're talking about it, but it just raises awareness. Cancer is far more common than probably we think, because we just don't hear about it because people almost go private. They don't want people to know about that. But by talking about it, it makes other people think that they should be doing something themselves about it, and particularly screening, which is something I'll talk about. The second thing that I want to talk about is that it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to be vulnerable, I suppose, because cancer is nasty and it really knocks you around. And the bottom line is you can't do it by yourself. But we're also surrounded by others who are part of our journey as well. And they are victims as well for it, because they're affected by the cancer that you go through. And the third thing that I'll talk about is we need to learn as much as possible about the cancer and about the treatment we're going through, because that makes that journey easier if we do understand what we're going through. So those are kind of the three things that clumping up my talk and the lessons about those three aspects in here. So if I can move on to the first one, the need to talk more about it. I consider that I was really lucky with the cancer that I had. It was caught early enough that it wasn't going to, that it was treatable, but not early enough where I didn't have to go through quite a serious operation to get rid of it. I had bowel cancer, and I've had a large part of me removed, which means I'm living with kind of the consequences of that. It will affect me for the rest of my life. But they caught it all, so I didn't need to go through the extremes of chemotherapy or radiation treatment, fortunately. But my circumstance was I turned 60. I got the bowel screening pack from the government, kind of put it aside. My wife, my much younger wife, 84 days younger than me, and I know that because she constantly tells me that she's younger than me for 83 days. And then on the last day, she kind of says, oh, it's not too old. She got her pack and she did it, came back negative, and she was then hounding me to get my check done as well. So I did it thinking, yeah, I'm fine. Did the check, it came back, okay. There are signs here that it came back positive, that I needed to get checked. And I was thinking, no, Yeah, there are lots of reasons why this could be. So I then went into further checks, and they did find a cancer. They did a first operation, found that it didn't get all of it, and so they needed to go much wider and go through. I was at the time the chief executive of Fire and Emergency New Zealand, and so firefighters are very conscious of cancer. It's really an occupational hazard of firefighters, where they go into places where there are carcinogenic materials. Soot is one of the most carcinogenic things out there. So firefighters are at extreme risk of cancer through their career. So I decided as fire and emergency that chief executive that I would tell my people, hey, I've got cancer and I'm going through it. I'm going to be offline for a month over the Christmas period while I have the operation. And just by talking about that, I got a lot by emailing that out to the organisation, 14,000 people there. I got a lot of replies back saying two things. First of all, that many more people than I would have thought said they either had cancer or someone in their family had cancer. So it gave me the impression that, it's far more common out here. But secondly, I also got a lot of emails back and from outside from my friends who I told as well, that prompted them to go and get checked as well. And some of them also had found that they had the signs of cancer, and they went some of them turned out to be a false positive. Some of them, they then had they went for the checks themselves as well. But the fact that I was talking about it and reminding people, particularly your peers around there, and certain cancers are more susceptible at a certain age group, by talking about it, you raise the awareness of it. Now, if my friends have been talking about that, I probably would have gone earlier as well. Whereas it was kind of my wife who was nagging me to do it that went through. Why was I perhaps not that keen to, not keen, that's the wrong word. Why was I so blasé about it? It's because of my background. 34 years in the military, in an organisation where as an officer, you feel like you have to be the one who's calm and control. It's all right, calm everyone down in here. And even in my personal life, that was the approach that I took, really trying to calm my family down. My kids in particular saying, yeah, okay, it's all right. It may not be a full cancer, or if it is there, they'll deal with it in the first operation. By the time I went in the second operation, they were not believing me as much. And I had the second operation, and I also had complications with my second operation. I had to do an emergency aspect of that as well. So it was up and down for my family as they went through. And on reflection, by being the tough guy, by saying, I don't need your help, it's okay, things are under control in here, I didn't realize that they were the victims as well, and that they felt helpless, because if I did have cancer, or when I was notified I did have cancer, I wasn't allowing them any way of feeling that they were able to add any value to that circumstance. And here I want to reflect back onto lessons out of the military. During my time as Chief of the Defence Force, we were fighting in Afghanistan, and I had 9 soldiers killed during my time as Chief of Defence Force. And every time there were soldiers killed, I would go up to Afghanistan to engage with the people there, talk to the groups around them, because one of the things that the psychologists talked to us very deeply about was a thing called survivor guilt. Those people who were around those who were killed, they were either in the same vehicle or the same section or the same patrol, they had that feeling of, how come I survived and these other people were killed? I felt I should have been able to do something, but I felt helpless because I couldn't do anything. And the thing is, if people feel that they could have done something but they didn't know about it or know what to do, they were affected more severely by that survivor guilt than those who felt that they did everything they possibly could, or that they were able to do something to help the people who died, or to make the situation better. And when people came back from Afghanistan and went to meet the family of those dead who were killed, they really crumpled. That's when that psychological pressure was on. So the big lesson was always try and get these people involved, get those around you involved in being able to do something positive, so they feel that they were able to contribute to make things better. Even though someone might have died, they were at least making it better for the family who were back in New Zealand, or for others in the particular team, or to help resolve the particular circumstance in which they died in as well. And on reflecting that, it was probably late in the operations that I went through that I suddenly realized, because my family were visiting me, particularly my younger son, who worked in fire and emergency as well. He was getting a lot of stress because people would ask him 5 or 6 times a day how I was going, and he felt he couldn't really add any value to that. And it was then I realized that perhaps if I had allowed them to help me, said, hey, yes, I would really appreciate that help, that they would feel that they were able to contribute to making it better for me, even if it's just making it more comfortable in my life and so on. So it's a real important thing that we do show that we are vulnerable, that we admit that we could do a bit of help. And even if it's just a small thing, even if it's just someone getting you a coffee, or someone doing a particular task for you, your family mowing your lawns, or doing things like that, they feel that they are helping you, and that reduces the stress on them and makes sure, and it will help them getting through and recovering from the disaster that's the cancer that we are having as well. So that was really probably the biggest issue that I learned as a personal lesson for me, that I was trying to be the brave one, the tough one, the calm one who get through and control it. And I didn't allow the others to be able to contribute so that they'd feel that they helped in the circumstance, and they weren't helpless victims of the cancer that was affecting me as well. So that's something that I really do say to people, admit, or even if you don't think you are, create the environment where others around you, your family in particular, can help you. They can be there for you. And that helps them get through the cancer, your cancer, as much as it will help you by them doing those little things that makes your life easier as well. So getting through cancer is as much mental as it is physical. But for those around you, it is all the mental aspects to that. There's all that psychology of how do they engage with your cancer, and how do they engage with you, and how do they feel that they are helping you, rather than just being a burden and being all sad and saying how sorry they are for you and so on. But if they feel, if they can actually do something that would help you, small or big, then that's a really important thing as well. Don't be the stoic, brave one who says, yeah, it's all right, I'm the calm one in here, because others are looking for ways in which they can help you and participate in that. The next bit is that learning about cancer as much as possible. And again, if I go back to the experiences I've had in the military and fire, soldiers can be calm in the midst of a battlefield, in the midst of shots being fired at them, explosions going around. Firefighters can be calm entering into a burning, blazing building. It's well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes 300 or 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and they go and operate in there. They can be calm amongst all those dangers because they know what is happening. They know the risks. They know the effects that's going to occur in here. They know that the training that they have, or the experiences they have, or the knowledge they have is able to get them through, or at least they can recognize what's happening because they put that into context. And so it's a much more calm environment for people if you know what's going on. And I'm sure that you do, but make sure that you're doing the research on the types of cancer. You talk to your doctor or your surgeon about what is going to happen. I found in the medical staff were really keen to tell me everything that was going on, because they recognised that the more knowledge that I had, the calmer that I would be experiencing it, even if it was going to be negative, even if it was going to be difficult, even if they're going to say, you're going to be in a lot of pain for a lot of this time in here, or these other side effects to it. Because I knew those things going on, it meant that, okay, this wasn't unusual. This wasn't cataclysmic. This is standard for how things are going on there. Now, again, being in the military, doctors are a pretty important bunch in the military. If the doctor tells you to do something, you click your heels and you do it, because you can actually be charged or court-martialed if you don't, because you're basically degrading yourself if you refuse medical treatment. So, for me, I wasn't in the mental mode of asking doctors questions. It was, they've told me to do this, I better go and do it. My wife was totally different. And in her family and in mine, we've had cancer quite clearly. I've had a brother who has died of cancer of the esophagus. My mother-in-law, my wife's mother, died of breast cancer. Her father had lymphomic cancer. She had a cousin die of cancer. So she was very much wired up to knowing what kind of questions to ask and how to do that. So when we'd sit with the doctor and the surgeon in the consultative theatre, they would kind of talk me through what the standard practice was. They'd ask any questions and I'd go, no, that seems fine. But my wife would then roll out those questions. But the answers she got, again, helped me going through. So again, it was, she had done that research that then I picked up on. She was able to ask those good questions. So again, ask the questions, find out about it, because the bottom line is, the more you know what's going to happen and the more you know about your illness and how it's going to affect you, the more you're going to be able to recognize what is happening and just put that into context. And if you can put things into context and know this is how it's going to be dealt with, or this is just going to last this particular long, or this is one of the side effects, it's not abnormal in here, then you're not going to panic. And that's a very extreme term, so excuse me if I'm using that incorrectly, but you're not going to be concerned about it. You'll just know, yep, that's how it works all the way through there. So know the risks, ask those questions in here, and don't be like me, which is the case of, okay, trying to pretend it's calm and therefore not give the impression of not be concerned about it. And that means that, if it had gone that way, if my wife hadn't been there, if my family hadn't been there reminding me of things in here, I would have still ended up where I was, but perhaps there would have been a lot more stress on me to go through. So those are kind of the three big lessons that I wanted to have. So I suppose from that perspective of entering into my cancer with the tough man syndrome, that was not the way to do it. By trying to calm down my family by saying, it's okay, I'm all right, I'm not worried about this, I'm okay, I don't need any of your help. That was also not the right thing to do, because it meant that those around me felt helpless, and I could see that survivor guilt in hindsight to go through.
Can I ask a question there, Rhys, if you wouldn't mind? So before you were mentioning around the family kind of feeling like victims and getting them to help, I was wondering whether or not, as you were learning, were you sharing that also with the family around that process? If you could just expand on that a little bit more.
Yes, I was. And in hindsight, probably not as much as I should have, but yes. So I didn't really tell my family that I had cancer until it was confirmed. And they told me, well, you should have at least told them that I had a positive in my first check and that this is what's going on and doing it. So it's almost preparing them for bad news or good news if it's going on. But as we were then going through in our schedule for the first of the colonoscopies, the exploratory one, the second one that was removing the cancer because I needed to go to a general hospital for that. The third one where I needed to have a major operation to have things taken out. The fourth one that was the emergency operation to rectify a problem I was having. We were telling the family there, and again, for the same reason for me that calmed me down, they knew what was happening, and that means that they could expect, okay, well, when might I hear about that? When would they hear the news about the results from the cancer biopsies? When I might be, how long I might be in hospital for, those kind of things in here, how long I was going to be recovered for afterwards. So yes, it's useful to talk to your family, explain things as well. Whether you can remember all the details from the doctor, that's probably going to be as much of an issue. But just say, hey, this is what's going to happen in there as well.
But sometimes at those early stages, it's all a bit of a blur, isn't it? And it's your wife or someone that's with you that's actually hearing a lot of the conversation that you're missing.
Very good point. Yes, because you're trying to digest it yourself, and you don't have that separation where someone can calmly, if they can do it calmly, but can, being not the person involved in there, they're more likely to retain that and link onto the important bits for everyone else. Because when the doctor's talking to you, you're going to think about those things that are important to you. Whereas take a support person, your wife, one of your kids, if that's possible or whatever, but have someone in there who can then be thinking around, okay, well, how's it going to affect everyone else? And what's the information that everyone else should know in there? Now, maybe you are calm enough to be able to do that yourself as well, but my guess is that you're going to be focused on what's it going to mean for me? What am I going to go through? Not thinking about what are others going to go through as well, and how to do that. So it's a very good question, Paul.
Did you find that when you were diagnosed, there was a rush of all of these thoughts of things that you may or may not have got organised and that sort of thing as well?
I suppose this is where my background in the military, you kind of are always dealing with danger, and every time I'd go into operational missions, which in the Middle East or Afghanistan, less so Timor because it was quite passive by that particular stage, or the Solomon Islands and things like that. You're always aware that, okay, there's always a danger in there. So for me, it was, the risk of death has always been there. But yes, you do jump immediately to okay, is there a possibility of me dying from this? And of course, there always is from cancers. And going through that ups and downs of you're testing positive. Okay, there's a bit of slump, but it's not necessarily cancer. So they're going, it is cancer. Okay. Had the first operation, they took it out. Okay, that's fine, but they haven't got all of it. And so, those ups and down roller coaster. And each of those times, you're probably thinking, okay, it's another step closer to perhaps being really serious as you go on. So, don't be afraid of thinking that. It's natural that you were thinking about that. I suppose I was quite stoic towards that because, the life of a military person, that's always a risk in here. For others, that's not the case. But it will be natural. You will think about that. That's where it's important to talk about things. And because it'll help you just to get it off your chest. It'll help others to understand how you're feeling. And if and the doctors or the surgeons can then talk to you about that, about what is the reality of the risk and what is the reality of the operation going through, or the reality of the stage of the cancer you're going through there as well. So, I think accepting that you're going to have those thoughts because cancer is such a generic term and such a scary term when you start talking about that it will affect you in that particular way. So even me, used to that environment, I had those thoughts, and sometimes it's going to be focused on me. I've got so much left to do. I want to do it. Sometimes it might be focused on what's going to happen to my wife or my kids or other things. If you're self-employed or running a big business, what's going to happen to the business? What do I have to organise for doing that? But yeah, if you take the time and work through those kind of things, that again, that's part of the thinking through and understanding what's going to happen, and by progressing through, putting things into place if you need to do so, that also helps calm yourself down, because you are feeling that you are addressing the issues, and coming up with solutions for that as well. Sometimes you can't, but yeah, it's useful. It's good mental discipline to take that fear and turning it into something logical and something that can be tackled, rather than constantly worrying about it. So use those thoughts in a positive way to turn that into action that will help you progress through the cancer. I will stop my talk there. I've covered all those things, and Paul, thank you for those two really good questions in here. So if I can just quickly summarise, talk more, particularly to your friends, your acquaintances, to say, to get them to get their checks. The best way to survive cancer is to pick it up early. And so screening is something that I emphasise all the time, and did when I went back to Foreign Emergency in New Zealand. Really tried to emphasise screening is going to be better than any post-finding care, because the earlier you can catch it, the more likelihood that it's not going to be serious, the more likelihood you're going to survive as well. Secondly, it's also, you're not the only victim. There are others going through that as well, particularly your family. So make sure that they have a pathway through it, and they feel that they can be positively influencing the stress and the environment that everyone in the family is going through. And secondly, to help calm yourself, make sure that you are asking the questions, that you know the environment you're going into, so that you can recognise the stage you're at, what's happening to you as normal for that type of cancer, or normal for the operations that you're going through. And again, that will just help your mental positiveness, because there's nothing unusual, there's nothing you don't know about that's going to be scary. The things that you do know about are going to be scary, but there's nothing that you're going to really worry about, because you've at least got that pathway, you understand what's happening, and you can put that all those into perspective. So that's where I'll talk, and if there are other questions, quite happy to answer those.
It's been really interesting listening to hear, with regard to those that are alongside you, and I often think it's the one that's closest to you almost gets a double burden, because they're trying to understand what you're going through, and then understand what they need to do, or what they may be facing themselves to cope, isn't it? Did you find that there was anything that you discovered, from your wife that she's learned that we may be able to share with our wives or so forth, that we may not have done?
I think the biggest thing is you're probably going to have, if you allow it to, more sincere conversations with your wife than you've had before, because she will want to know how you're feeling. She'll want to know what she can do. She'll want to talk about, because she sees things going on around you, she'll also want to talk about, well, how's it affecting your children, or your brothers and sisters
Right.
around in there as well. So being open to your wife nudging you in certain directions, and having really sincere, genuine conversations around what you are going through, and listening to what she is saying to you, because that your wife in particular is the one who knows the environment that you're in, knows your family environment, and the one that can pick up the vibes about what is happening there and give you the nudge to say, actually, you need to tell the kids this, or have you told your wider family around this particular thing, or hey, don't play this down. This is quite serious. I think you need to talk more to your family about those kind of things as well.
Right.
So it really is emphasizing that partnership and communication. And just like everything in a marriage, communication, talking is really important. They're not going to be able to know everything about what you're feeling because they're not going through that as well. But they will feel that there's a gap in their knowledge that you can only fill by talking through how you're feeling and what you're going through as well.
Right.
I found it's really brought my wife and I much closer together. We've got our 40th, 35th wedding anniversary coming up. So we've been there a long time, but this really has brought us closer together because the experience, the joint experiences that we're going through, she went through it as well, as did my family.
Yeah. So the very first point you talked about was with regard to, I'm going to open it up in a minute for everybody, but there's just a couple of things that I just want to see and get some feedback from Rhys on. So you talked about the need to be talking more about cancer and raise awareness. And of course, when you have cancer, what was your experience talking with people and the ones that talked back and the ones that didn't know what to say? And how did you then help them to be able to talk to you rather than cross the street, so to speak?
The first lot, I'd say there's several categories or groups of people in there. There were those that their response was, wow, that reminds me I need to get onto that. They're kind of feeling that vulnerability. And so the conversation you have, it can be quite straightforward, which is, hey, you really should be checked yourself, or here are the, what were kind of the warning signs around this. So people, some particular group are genuinely interested in, how did you know? What did you find out? How's it affected you around in here? That's quite it's often an easy conversation for them, but often a hard conversation for you, because you may have missed some of the signs or ignored them or stuff in here. The most awkward ones are the ones who feel helpless. And as you said, they're the ones who don't know how to talk about it because they're focusing on this poor person in here and the tragedy of that. And again, probably that feeling of helplessness. I don't know what I can do, and therefore I don't know how I could even talk to it. Should I say I'm really sorry? Those kind of things. So that's the most awkward one. And I think the only way to get around that is to be open and not judgmental about that, but just say, even if it's just say, hey, I'm all right, we're getting it through it. It's serious, but I've got good medical staff, or I know what's happening in there as well. So in all those conversations, you staying calm is good. Staying calm's different to not telling people about where the risks are or about the how you're feeling in here, but just stating things quite calmly, because people don't know how to react around you unless they've had experience in cancer as well. That's one of the issues. So people do not know how to talk to someone with cancer about it, which is the core thing. So by you prompting it, and you can start the conversation by just admitting you've got cancer, encouraging others to check themselves, your peers, your friends in there as well. And most people respond really well to those kind of checks because they see it real in front of them. Here's my friend who has got cancer as well. It's not just some fact or some statistic out there. It's real for them. So you can use those conversations in a positive way.
But there is a role we can play, isn't there, in making it easy or giving them permission to feel awkward, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep.
that kind of opens it up. And yeah, I know that there's one or two of the guys in our groups have even lost relationships because of the awkwardness or people not knowing or whatever, right? And that's kind of tragic, really. But hey, listen, guys, I'm going to open it up now to anybody that wants to ask Rhys a question. Please do. Please just push your space bar down and chat away.
The hardest conversations, I'm sure that we're all aware, are when you're first informed about it and you don't know enough about it, or you haven't really come to terms with this is where that my life trajectory is going to be, and they are hard conversations. But yes, like you're saying, once you kind of got into the how you live with cancer, you can be more calm and you can be more reassuring for that as well. So that's a very good point, Morris.
Yes. I think that I know there's a few guys from our group here that we chatted the other day, Rhys, was that the guys that when they're diagnosed, before they go into treatment, when they can start mixing with others or meeting others that have gone down a similar path and learn from them, it helps them with that calmness. Or you described it in the military. So when they go into battle, that they're prepared for going into the battle, and as bad as or tough as it might be, they know what's going on, which comes back to this, what you were describing. But to actually hear it from people that have survived it, so to speak, like yourself, if you were talking to another guy that was about to, go through bowel cancer and so forth, and you explained it, his path or his recovery, I believe, would be so much better because it's not this unknown.
Yeah, and as I said at the very start, cancer is far more common than we probably think, and there are more survivors out there, and the chance of survival is pretty good for most cancers if they're caught in an opportune time.
Yeah.
But by talking to people who've gone through that, which is your point, Paul, it gives you the reassurance that it's possible to get through it. Yeah, there are going to be some rough things in here. Yes, you might have to live with certain ongoing issues with your body. But yeah, by talking to people who have got through it or who are going through it, that again just raises your knowledge and your confidence and your awareness of what is going to happen to you, particularly those who are going through things like chemotherapy. What are you going to feel like? How are you going to do? What have they found that makes them feel better on the particular day after there? When the real doldrums too, there small little things are really important in those conversations.
So, is there any other questions anyone would like to share? What they've discovered in some of these points that Rhys has raised.
Rhys, it's interesting. You brought up a good point about screening. And it really amazes me where the world's basically been run by men and we haven't got a screening program. They've done a marvelous job for women, for breast cancer, cervical cancer and that. The stupid bastards forgot about us.
Yep. It's an incredibly frustrating thing. Men need to take responsibility for their own health and driving those things there as well. I agree. We are too blasé. We are too macho. We still think we're in our 20s, invincible. We don't pick up on the little signals of something's happening in our body. It is a mental image. Men don't want to admit that they've got something wrong. And in the military, because we were deploying people over there, people didn't want to show they had injuries or trying to ignore it because they didn't want to let the team down. Whereas our saying was, it's okay not to be okay, because I'd rather you step out of line now, we fix you, so you're available for the next gen rather than falling over early. But for some reason, it's a male issue. They don't want to let the sports team down by not playing in a particular term because they've got a dicky knee or twisted ankle or things like that. So we have to change. And again, that talking to people and say, hey, you've got to get checked, you've got to go on there, is one of the best ways of doing that. And then it makes people around you aware of, hey, this happens. You've got to take responsibility for it. No one's going to suddenly appear out of left field and say, oh, here's the situation. You've got to be responsible yourself for that.
What about some of the other guys?
I think education, just a point that's really helped both myself and my wife, educate yourself. Get to know all you can, and regard this thing that's going on in your lives as the enemy. You've got to get to know the enemy and its little tricks and its little foibles, and also speak as much as you can to the oncologist. I found that they're a depth of knowledge and wisdom, and if you can ask the right questions, you will get lots and lots of good answers. So that'd be my point.
I'd be really interested to hear your own views about letting your family know and letting others in to help you as well. But I'll just say a little anecdote in here. What I found really helped is trying to add a little humour into things. So I had a bag, I forget the name of it's just gone out of my head. When they did the operation, they pulled it out. But I hated it. And so I named it after a person that I really hated. They used to, that I had to work with, but I really disliked them. So, it kind of gave a little bit of light relief. And those who knew me knew what I called it. And, so it became like a running joke in there as well. But I found someone that I really didn't like, but I had to work with them. And so it's a case of it. I was able to funnel my frustrations into something that just made it a little bit lighter for me as well.
All right, so Rhys, you're most welcome. We'll close off this part of it, and you're most welcome to stay on if you wish to. You've got your bag of goodies, I understand. But other than that, I want to thank you on behalf of Look Good, Feel Better for giving us your time and your insights, and it's extremely valuable that we do share this amongst each other, because by doing that, each of us are going to learn. All of the guys on board, if it's not for them, I bet you a lot of these guys will be having conversations with their mates to tell them what you've just told them.
So I will go now, but all the best.
Okay.
It's been great to meet you all. And like many people here, I have my cats. Just had to fend them off from jumping up here as well. So pets are a great comfort in this time as well. So all the best to everyone.
All right.